usually remember the war times and also the military issues. That's true because it is essentially a military term, and the activities of logistics have been since the creation of humanity. Study of logistics started with 1900s as a scientific way. And if you look at 1901, there is a published article which was by John Crowell. It discussed the logistics from a strategic point of view. And when you come to 1905, the Colonel Chauncey Baker used logistics to define military function as the transport, supply, maintenance, and replacement of materials and personnel during the war. So in 1916, Art Shaw introduced the concept of distribution channel. And in 1960s by Welt, in 1927 by Borsodi defined the concept of logistics in accordance with today's usage. But indeed, with the start of Second World War, this is a very important, date because between 1939 to the end of the war, logistics has been well developed and its importance has been fully clarified because logistics superiority helped the Allies win the war in World War II. When we come to 1960s, maybe you know about Peter Drucker. He is one of the business guru. Stated that logistics was one of the most important factors to increase the efficiency of businesses, which is very true in today's world as well. And in 1961, the first book on logistics was written in the United States. And when we look at 1963, the National Council of Physical Distribution Management was established, and the name of this council was changed to Council of Logistics Management in 1985. What is the aim of this council? It is to develop the theory of logistics and increase its awareness by providing an understanding of logistics processes. From 1960s to 1980s, many books, articles, papers, various works were written about logistics, especially the concepts of uh, distribution resource planning, materials resource planning, Kanban and just-in-time concepts have been discussed in the literature. And in 1972, for example, Michael Schiff examined the relationship between accounting and logistics in his book. An innovation on this, between the 1970s and 1980s, countries, especially United States, removed the restrictions on transportation, which we call it deregulation, and paved the way for air, train, land, and sea transportation. And again, if you ask people, mostly when you say logistics, people understand as it is a transportation. That's true because transportation is one of the core activities of logistics. And usually people think about logistics as transportation. But actually, logistics is more than transportation. Transportation included in the logistic activities, but it is not enough. We will talk about warehousing, purchasing, inventory management, even customer service, and etc. So in the United States, let's start with transportation, of course. Deregulations enable businesses to switch to more competitive and free structure, of course. So freedom of price, flexibility in scheduling, and routing has paved the way for emergence of new and diverse services. In 1980s, as you know, computer technology developed tremendously in the world and gradually began to enter all areas of life. And in this direction, it was not too late for computer to enter, of course, to the logistics life, especially in the fields of inventory management, scheduling, order management, and routing. The use of computers has developed quite widely. At the same time, in 1980s, another important event happened, globalization, which, business started to supply their needs overseas from Far East countries, for example, such as raw materials. Also, they use the labor of these countries and the spare parts from every corner of the world. So, companies were now able to expand to every part of the world, which makes the logistics activities even more important because we need now transportation and warehousing more than before. So now I would like to explain the logistic concept in four phases, three phases basically. Let's look at remember the mass production phase, right? Because the interest in logistics stems from complex developments of industry, especially in United States, especially after World War, Second. Of course, the mass production starts very early, especially Ford. If you remember Fordism, but after the World War II, it is increasing much more efficiently. At first, the only issue that was given importance was production at this part. Organizational principles, also technical developments were applied in production. USA lagged behind England in development, and a lot of effort was made to make for it. So mass production was required to close this gap and make large investments that was required for mass production. As the scope of investments and the resulting capital increased, productivity also increased. So, thus the US entered the second phase of the industrial development, which is after mass production, emergence of large firms. So now the business world has become more sensitive to changing economic conditions because of course, the globalization pushed the countries as well because now everybody can't, compete with other firms in other countries. So economic conditions and also aim to grow with less competition. And again, United States transition from single person management to group management, which are corporations. So the second phase of industry coincided with the emergence of large firms. Then if you look at stage phase three, marketing, right? Because since the production has increased so much, the market couldn't consume it. So there is a more than what is demanded. So organizations now needed to increase their sales with certain geographical boundaries that they had to sell these products. Otherwise, the inventory costs become very much. So these marketing gain great importance in this third phase. So expert marketers were essential to retain or expand the existing market. If you remember 1980s, really the sales issue become very important in marketing, especially we are all concerned that marketing is equal to sales. No, it is not. Marketing is much more a wider concept, but sales become so popular in those years because companies want to get rid of their extra products. They don't want to pay extra inventory cost. And when we look at phase four, now it is time about the logistic and distribution because in the mass production, production increased, but it was getting harder and harder to deliver the goods from producer to the consumer. So the production line eventually ran into a bottleneck. This problem came to the fore in the fourth phase. So the solution was, of course, about logistics and distribution. In the early stages of distribution phase, it became popular to store the products at different points, but even that was not enough. So urgent shipping with high charges were required. Some companies even set up their own shipping companies. So all the phase of logistics changed in this phase four. So companies started to look around the solution, how we're going to manage all these setups. So basically there are three stages of development of logistics. I will take from 1960s to 1980s as the fragmentation because companies see the activities of logistics separately in those years with some following operations such as demand forecasting. Everybody did their own demand forecasting. What I mean, retailers do their own demand forecasting, producers make their own demand forecasting, suppliers make their own forecasting. So everybody separately working on separate activities: purchasing, requirements planning, production planning, inventory management. Every party included in this system working actually out in house, and also some of them are outsourcing, but Still, they are working separately. This is called fragmentation. Yeah, sorry. Now, in the second stage, it is called a merger. It is between 1980s to 2000. The logistic activities in this period grouped under two concepts. First of all, material management and the physical distribution. When I say material management, I am talking about inbound logistic activities, which is between suppliers and the producer. When I talk about the physical distribution, I'm talking about outbound logistics, which is between producer to consumer or producer to wholesaler, retailer, and customer, or producer to retailer to the consumer. When we look at the total integration, which it started at in 2000s, now still continues, this process, which is still ongoing, has brought up the gathering of activities given the fragmentation and merger section under one roof. So globalization in the world economy, also liberalization, and in parallel with this, the efforts to adapt to the companies have increased the importance of logistic activities and revealed the concept of integrated logistics today. It manages to stay one step ahead of the competition, which can coordinate all these services, which are described as integrated logistics solutions on behalf of its customers and which can offer its customers as a single system by harmonizing all logistic subsystems with each other. What I'm talking about: purchasing, demand forecasting, transportation, warehousing, all these logistic activities blend together and become integrated within the supply chain, because supply chain concept also evolved in those years we will talk about today. After that, let's now define what is logistics. Actually, supply chain management professionals define logistics as it is planning, implementation, and control of efficient and effective movement and storage of materials, services, information flow in both directions. This is important in supply chain, from starting point of raw material, which is coming from the suppliers, to the end point of consumption of the product to meet the needs of customers. Another definition is given by International Federation of Freight Forwarders Association. They define logistics as all kinds of customs and financial matters such as transportation, consolidation, storage, handling, packaging, and distribution of products, as well as auxiliary and consultancy services, as well as customs declaration of products, insurance, collection or making of payment, and other documentation related to the product is service. This is logistic services that we provide in those years. And if we combine, it is seen that it includes, absolutely includes the processes of planning and control of the flow of products and services from point of supplier to the consumer in accordance with customer needs. And it's seen that these flows cover processes such as transportation, storage, packaging, and handling of the product. We have 7 R's of logistics. What are they? The right product at the right quantity, in the right condition, at the right place, in the right time, in the right to the right customer with the right price. These are the 7 R's of logistics, 7 rights of logistics, which is, maybe seems uh, so difficult to achieve, right? But logisticians achieve these 7 R's of logistics because all products all around the world be in time with the right condition in the right place to the right customer and trying to achieve the cost balance in these services. It's a miracle, correct? Now I would like to review the economic effects of logistics, because logistics both in the world and Turkey is my country. I'm not sure where you joined this training, But the Turkey is one of, good companies because it's a bridge. It is in the middle of both Africa, Asia, Europe, Russia, everyone. It's a very geographically important country. That's why we are good at logistics. I can easily say we have shortcomings as well, but still, I will talk about logistics in the world and Turkey also about macroeconomic impacts. Then the logistic provide some micro benefits. First of all, ownership utility, right? Because if you deliver the goods to the needed place with, in the meantime and in the right shape and in the, correct amount, then we, uh, match the benefits. Ownership, shape, space, and time utilities. These are the economic benefits of logistics. Now let's talk about the logistic industry in the world a little bit. While it is stated that logistics sector is one of the locomotive sectors of countries, Georgetown University Logistic Directors Professor Ricardo Ernst states that 25% of every dollar produced in the world goes to logistics services. This is not, less. It is very important what he says. And according to the new report of Transport Intelligence, the total global logistic market size is 6.6 trillion in 2019, and the industry is expected to continue to grow strongly in the coming years. And when we come to this year, because of pandemic, the expectations were high, and then some downturn, negative things happen. But then now it becomes to recover. Apart from the United States and Europe, which have more than 50% of world logistic markets, cities such as Dubai and Hong Kong have been rapidly advancing towards becoming a logistic base. And regions that will increase in importance are, as you know, Asia Pacific, Eastern Europe, Russia, and the Middle East, respectively. Again, due to the pandemic, global trade contracted by 9.6 in 2020, while global gross domestic product shrank by 3.3%. So these rates are the most critical rate of shrinkage since the Second World War, which is very interesting. And the logistics sector is one of the most affected sectors all over the world, as you know, because of pandemic. After the first shock experienced during pandemic process, if you look at my country, the Turkish logistic industry, which managed to eliminate the effects of the crisis by taking action quickly, but couldn't be isolated from structural problems of global logistics industry, entered into a struggle due to greatly increased expense items. And this pandemic crisis brought the logistic cost to the highest level. And many factors, freight, for example, freight costs become very high. Many factors that increase the cost in logistics sector emerged. In the fact that the vehicles carrying the goods exported from our country, in Turkey, for example, had to return empty. Within the framework of import restrictive measures had an impact on freight prices, of course. The increase in fuel prices, increase in exchange rates, road and toll fees, increase in tire spare part prices can be counted among the prominent expense items of logistics sector, which has a large share in our country's service exports. So this increase in logistic costs directly affects the prices when transported goods reach the final customer, of course. And if you remember the container crisis due to Chinese ports, if you remember, affect the freight prices as well. However, despite everything, Turkey, whose conjuncture is closely followed on the way to becoming a transit country and trade center, and which is a bridge between the Middle East and Turkish republics and Europe, is becoming more important for many countries as it is a transit country route for land, sea, air, and pipeline. And although there are major disruptions in the logistic industry in the whole world, the chaos environment experienced, especially in the first period of pandemic, these purchasing tendencies towards Turkey after some global companies which couldn't provide adequate service and supply from China as of 2020 switch their purchasing operations to Turkey. We call it nearshoring. So most of the developed Western countries get rid of offshore and started to reshore or nearshore. And Turkey is maybe your country, I don't know where you live, but maybe your country gets some advantages out of this pandemic process about logistic activities and becomes to achieve some advantageous situation of this. If you look at logistic industry, the threats, there are lots of threats. One of them is increasing national and international competition. Another one is geopolitical problems. Technological inadequacies lead logistic companies to informal markets, of course. Inability of companies that have not solved the scale problem to gain the competitive power. Sustainability becomes more difficult if it's not persistent in maintaining the good. These are the threats that we face in today's logistic industry. But again, we have a lot of opportunities. One of them is rapid development trend of logistics sector at home and abroad. Opportunities to positively affect process efficiency with digitalization. Within the framework of international development, the tendency of the Mediterranean region to become a logistic hub is high. Increasing demand for institutionalized logistic companies and economic growth being the driving force for the logistics sector in Turkey, for my country, for example. Actually, I put some information about Turkey in here, but I'm not sure if you are interested in Turkey. So deliver these notes to you with the slides. If you are interested, you can always read it. So I will skip these slides if you are not interested in Turkey. I will continue with definition. And also, as we define again, please remember it's a process of planning, implementation, and controlling, starting with from supplier to deliver to the consumer. And I know that logistic is time-related positioning of resources or the strategic management of the total supply chain. So what is the aim of logistics? It is to achieve high customer satisfaction, of course. So it must provide a high quality service with low or acceptable cost. The role of logistics, I can show this figure to you. As I told the inbound logistics, I can separate it inbound logistics and outbound logistics. In the middle, there is the operations within the organization. This is usually a focal firm, let's say a producer. On the left side, the external suppliers, which are the raw material supplier or components or whatever you outsource. These are the suppliers, the inbound logistics part. And then once it gets into the raw materials are, coming to the producer's factory, there is a materials management in here. We have some internal suppliers, internal customers, which is, in our system. And when we transform, we produce the final products, then it is time to deliver them to external customer. These external customers can be final consumer or can be wholesaler or produce or retailer. So you will see this is the supply chain management, and we see all logistics in both sides of the supply chain. And I would like to link the logistics strategies with competitive advantage strategies. If you remember Michael Porter, each organization, first of all, design its own strategic logistics, but they often move along similar lines. So the logistics strategies of Ford or Volkswagen, for example, are broadly similar, as are the strategies of Lufthansa and Air France is similar. This allows us to describe few generic strategies which are based on Michael Porter's basic strategies. What are they? If you study business, you already remember maybe. He offers one, cost leadership, makes the same or comparable products more cheaply. Second is product differentiation, makes the products that customers cannot get from other suppliers. So your logistics can be either from cost leadership side or from the product differentiation side. If you prefer the cost leadership, I can offer you a logistics strategy of lean strategies, which is no organization can completely avoid the cost of logistics. So the next best option is to make it as cheap as possible. Then a reasonable objective is to minimize the total cost of logistics while ensuring acceptable levels of customer service. This approach is called lean logistics. It's coming late, sorry. Yeah. Early work on lean operation was done in the motor industry, led by Toyota first. So lean strategies are coming from Toyota. So this work concentrated on lean production. But the methods got such good results, so they spread in other areas, eventually developing a lean enterprise. If we need to summarize the lean perspective, there are five main principles. Value, designing a product that has value from a customer's perspective, of course. Value stream, designing the best processes to make the product. Value flow, managing the flow of materials through the supply chain. Pool, only making products when there is customer demand. Um, there are actually, I would like to talk about a little bit in here. There are two strategies, pull and push. Push means you produce a lot, make the stock, and then you try to sell them to the market. This is called push. You produce more and you try to push to the market. But when we look at the vice versa, the pull strategy, you making products if there is a customer demand. So make to order means. And lean strategies are based on pull scenarios. And the fifth principle is aim of perfection, looking for always continuous improvements, Kaizen philosophy, to get closer to the aim of the perfect operations. These are the principles of lean strategies. The first of these principles, value, first sets the target for the organization and seeing how to add value for the final customer of the product. Second principle, value stream designs means of making this product and effectively sets the requirements of the supply chain. And the last three principles refer directly to the supply chain. So the third, value flow, gets an efficient flow of materials, eliminating the waste, interruptions, waiting, and also the detours. The fourth principle, pull, shows how to control the flow of materials by pulling them through. And the fifth principle, aim of perfection, describes a continuing search for improvement. This is common theme for management initiatives which often say that areas of waste should be continually identified and eliminated. Uh, Townsend says that all organizations are at least 50% waste. Waste people, waste effort, waste space, waste time. Toyota, during their development of work, identifies some areas of supply chain where this waste is most likely to occur. For example, quality. That is too poor to satisfy customers. Wrong production level of capacity. Making products or having capacity that is not currently needed. Poor process. Having unnecessary, too complicated, or time-consuming operation is a waste, right? Waiting for operations to start or finish, for materials to arrive, for equipment to be repaired, and so on. Movement, with products making unnecessary, long, or inconvenient movements during the operations. And the stock, inventory, holding too much stock, increasing complexity and raising costs. These strategies always announced with just-in-time systems. Toyota used just-in-time systems, which means almost no stock, no inventory holding, and it is very, critical issue to be manage everything in just-in-time. If you are interested in this, in the supply chain class, we talk about much more complicated of these issues, give much more information about the Toyota strategies. But in this part, it is enough to know that logistic that is managed by lean strategies, you need to get rid of these waste areas and try to focus on cost reduction. And of course, you cannot get rid of customer service, but balanced customer service is enough. A lean strategy looks for ways of eliminating waste, as I said. The typical approach does a detailed analysis of current operations, of course, and then removes the operations that add no value to the chain and eliminates delays, simplifies movements, reduces complexity, uses higher technology to increase the efficiency, looks for economies of scale always, locates near to customer to save travel, and removes unnecessary risks links from the supply chain. One warning is that low cost do not automatically mean lean operations, okay? We are not talking about cheap strategy. Lean operations maintain customer service while using fewer resources. They do not just minimize the costs. For example, a green grocery could minimize its inventory cost by having no stock, but it would not generate much customer satisfaction. Some people also suggest that lean operations might work in the mass production car industry, but lessons do not necessarily transfer to other supply chains. So in particular, lean operations might not work when there are variable and uncertain conditions. So there is an alternative, more flexible strategy we can offer, which is called agility. Maybe you heard about agile supply chains, right? An agile strategy concentrates on the other side of the efficient versus responsive, or lean versus agile. Its supporters say that lean operations put too much emphasis on costs and cannot deal with changing conditions, increasing competition, or more sophisticated and demanding customers. For example, if demand for a product is steady at 100 units a week, lean logistics will remove all the waste and have enough capacity to deliver these 100 units. Unfortunately, if demand suddenly rises to 110 units, lean operations cannot cope. At- As markets are more demanding more variety and customization, logistics should be more flexible. Maybe lean strategy is much more suitable for automobile industry, but for example, fashion industry, agile strategy is better. So lean strategy is used by mostly Toyota, Volkswagen, Ford even use this strategy. But agile strategy, for example, Zara uses agile strategy in order to manage their logistics. The aim of agile strategy is to give a high customer service by responding quickly to different or changing circumstances. So you can talk, if you are managing a supply chain, maybe you can ask a question to yourself. How agile is your supply chain? Um, in logistic books, we see that Zara is a very good example. Even it's a fashion textile, company. Still, it is best known with their logistic strategies because in all over the world, every store of Zara, in 15 days, they change their racks, new products, and they are trying to use the pull system instead of push system. You cannot see entire month the same product. Instead of this, they change, they offer too many variety of products and they try to improve their customer service without thinking any other details of lean strategies. There are two aspects of agility. First, there is the speed of reaction, of course, responsiveness, we say. Agile organizations keep a close check on customer demands and react quickly to changes. Second, it is the ability to tailor logistics to demands from individual customers. These are, for example, different aspects of customer service. An implication is that end customer satisfaction is a prime concern, even if this comes at somewhat higher prices. So, if you look at agile supply chain strategy, you will see sensitivity, you will see relationships management, you will see processes, you will see flexibility, and much more information sharing. Organizations that put a lot of emphasis on customer satisfaction are said to have customer focus. So justification for this strategy comes from obvious importance of customers. Without customers, an organization has no sales, of course, no income, no profit, no business, and soon no organization. So as Michael Perry of Unilever says, to sustain competitive advantage requires a total commitment to your customer. Organizations with a customer focus will typically aim for complete customer satisfaction, allow customers easy access to the organization, find exactly what they want, design logistics to meet or exceed these demands, be flexible and respond quickly to changing customer demands, get a reputation for outstanding quality and value, do after-sales checks to make sure the customers remain satisfied, and look outwards so they are always in touch with customers, potential customers, competitors, and so on. Actually, retailer, why Unilever talks about this? Because fast moving products industry is also using agile strategy just because there is too much competition and the customers really look for variety, quickness, and also very fast delivery, especially after electronic trade. Organizations with satisfied customers have obvious benefits of bringing them back with repeat business, right? So remembering the rule of thumb that it costs 5 times as much to attract a new customer as it does to retain an existing one. So satisfied customers also attract new business as they recommend a good service to 4 or 5 other people and compare with dissatisfied customers who warn dozens of potential customers about bad experience. Remember this. Now, if we compare lean versus agile, I cannot say that one of them is better than other. There is no superiority over it. It is just about your company strategy. What is your company's competitive strategy? If you are looking for cost leadership, then you should go after lean strategies. But if you are going after differentiation, agile strategies goes better for you. But you can also merge them, which we call agile. You can just make it in same pot to make better customer satisfaction with optimized costs. At first sight, the aims of lean and agile operations seem contradictory. One looks to minimize cost and sees customer service as a constraint, while the other looks to maximize customer service and sees cost as a constraint. So this seems to lead important differences. So if you compare them along with volume and variability axes, you can see that if your volume is high but variety is less, you should pick lean. If your volume is less but your variety is much, then you should go agile. If you go less, if you go more, you can do whatever you want. You can combine them maybe. Now I will, compare these two strategies with under some factors. For example, the objective of lean logistics is efficient operations, while agile logistic aims to being flexible to meet their customer demand. What is the method of lean logistics? It removes all the waste. When you look at agile logistics, its method is customer satisfaction. What are the constraints for lean logistics? Customer service. And in agile logistics, cost is the main constraint. Rate of change. Lean logistics has a long-term stability. Agile logistics has fast reaction to changing circumstances. That's why it is, agile. Measures of performance. Lean logistics usually measure productivity and utilization, but agile logistics measure lead times and service levels. If you look at the work, how it is done under lean strategies, it is uniform and standardized, but in the agile strategies, it is variable, more local control, and customized. And finally, the control mechanisms in lean logistics is formal planning cycles. when you look at the agile logistic, it is less structured by empowered staff. So what I can say in here is, you see, you will have higher strategies that comes from your corporate strategies. It goes directly to your logistics strategy. So in the organizations, distinctive competence, you should look at your product, your employees, your resources, facilities, and other internal strengths. And on the other side, you should look at your business environment, your customers, market conditions, technology, formal economic climate, and other external factors. So you decide which logistics strategy is effective for your own corporation. So factors in the design of logistics strategy. No one right way to develop and implement this strategy exists. The key to successful planning is get the best fit between the chosen tools and techniques, the organization's current culture, capabilities, and business environment, and the desired outcome, of course. So this leads to the usual advice of finding the best balance between the organization's internal strengths and external constraints, as I see in the figure. So matching the organization is good at to what customers want. So now we have three factors that managers must consider when designing logistics strategy: the hire strategies, the business environment, and organization's distinctive company. Okay, we talk about this. You can see much more details about these strategies, but mainly you should really look at what is, what are my customers doing, how is the market conditions, what is my capability of achieving technology. Economic climate is very important, especially in these days. Legal restraints, competitors, shareholders, interest groups, social conditions, political conditions. These factors affect your strategy as well. All competing organizations work in a similar business environment. Don't think another. So each can only succeed if it has a distinctive competence that set it apart from the competitors. This is defined by the factors that are under the organization's control and which it uses to distinguish itself. So a distinctive competence stems from organization assets, which include those those customers, employees, finances, organization, products, facilities. These are, I can say, the drivers of your supply chain, of your logistic activities. Okay, you should look at these, the level. So you will see the levels of decision in logistics: mission of company, corporate strategy, business, strategies, and then logistics strategy, and then logistic tactics, and of course the logistic operations. Now, logistics cannot be a part of concept of supply chain in nowadays. Supply chain consists of series of activities and organizations that materials move through on their journey from initial suppliers to final customers. For example, outline. This is a very simple outline for supply chain for paper. Let's start with seeding, grown by the gardener. It becomes a young tree, and then planted by the forester. It becomes a mature tree. These are all suppliers, of course. And then felled by the logger, goes to logs, chipped, and become a wool pulp, and then processed to turn into a raw paper, processed, become large, rolls of paper, and then finished product is small rolls of finished paper, and then you cut it, sheets of paper produced, and then you transport it to the picker, and then transport to the wholesaler, and then transport to the retailer, and finally we get as a final customer. This is outline of a supply chain for a easy product of paper. And if you look at the structure in a holistic way, you can see the operations in the organization as the focal firm, let's say producer. There are suppliers, first tier, and then the suppliers, supplier, second tier, and the suppliers, third tier, and it can goes up to like that in the upstream suppliers. And once you produce the finished product, then now you go to customers. It can be first tier customers or second tier or third tier. This is the entire supply chain. And there are different shapes of supply chain. You can see short and wide supply chain for industrial scent, for example. Queries at the top and customers are like that. Or part of a long and narrow supply chain, such as pharmaceuticals. You see the initial supplier, then component maker, then manufacturer, then the warehouse exporter, and etc. You can pick another, anything like that. So I can say supply chain length is the number of tiers or intermediaries that materials flow through between source and destination, and we might think of the supply chain in terms of suppliers, wholesalers, and retailers. So in reality, some supply chains are shorter than this when, for example, producers sell directly to final customers. On the other hand, supply chains are often longer with many intermediaries, perhaps including several stages of manufacturing, each of which is connected through intermediaries. Similarly, exporters might use series of logistics centers, transport operators, agents, freight forwarders, brokers, and agents to move materials through different parts of their journey. Besides the length, there is also a breadth of supply chain, which is the number of parallel routes that materials can flow through. You can imagine this in terms of the number of routes out to final customers. Let's say Cadbury's has a broad supply chain, which means that you can buy their chocolate in huge number of retailers. Thornton has a narrower supply chain, for example. Most of their chocolate sells through their own shops. Pijol, etc. feels as a very narrow chain. They only sell their chocolate in two shops in Belgium, for example. So it is another decision. Either your supply chain will be broad or light. This is a simplified supply chain for distributing shoes. You see manufacturer, and there is a logistics center. Imports are coming from there, coming to there, and then logistics center. They are separated into domestic sales or export. If you go to domestic sales, then either you go to direct sales or distributor. If you or a wholesaler. If you go to distributor, you can use large multiple retailers or small multiple retailers. If you go to wholesaler, you can go to supermarkets, clothes retailers, specialist store shops, or mixed retailers, and then to the public. If you go direct sales, you can make mail order, website, factory shop, or in today's electronic trade, you can use on mobile phones or internet shopping, and it goes both the industry institutions or public. So you can see how we distribute shoes, such a complicated distribution channel. And benefits of supply chain. If you see without a wholesaler, you see the factories, you have 32 routes in order to achieve your access your customers. But if you use intermediaries, let's say a wholesaler, then you can your factories goes to 4 rows of inwards, and then from the wholesaler you can go only 8 rows. It becomes again 4 times 8, 32 rows, but still you use wholesaler in order to be aligned with your customers' demand. So there are a lot of benefits of well-designed supply chains, of course, because if you use intermediaries, producers locate operations in best locations, regardless of the locations of their customers. By concentrating operations in large facilities, producers can get economies of scale. Also, producers do not keep large stocks of finished goods, as these are held further down the supply chain nearer to customers. Retailers held the stock. Wholesalers place large orders, and producers pass on lower unit costs in price discounts, for example. Or again, using wholesalers helps us to keep stocks from many suppliers, giving retailers a choice of goods. Again, wholesalers are near to retailers and have short lead times. Retailers carry less stock as wholesalers provide reliable deliveries, and retailers can have small operations giving a responsive service near to customers. Transport is simpler, with fewer, larger deliveries reducing the costs, and organizations can develop expertise in specific types of operations. Now, I would like to review the logistic activities that we talk. Actually, logistic originally limited to transportation and warehousing, but it extended to include the purchasing, distribution, inventory management, order management, processing, packaging, handling, labeling, parts and service support, production scheduling, returns, right, reverse logistic activities, demand forecasting, waste recovery, disposal, and even customer service. So in addition to transport and storage logistics, which include packaging, value-added services, stock management, order management, insurance, customs, brokerage, inspection and surveillance activities applied according to demand and needs is an important stakeholder for all sectors with its competitive power enhancing functions. So you see the circle in here, the logistics system. You see a lot of activities within this system. Also, you can see raw material acquisition. Let's start with purchasing, vendor selection, vendor location, inbound logistics, which includes the consolidation, transport mode selection, carrier selection, materials handling, warehousing, backhaul management, and transformation includes inventory management and packaging. Outbound logistics includes network design, inventory decision, packaging, consolidation, all the same with inbound logistics. And then marketing, serviceable and channel decision, and after sales, returns handling, parts management, and service networks. So these are the logistic activities, and from this night, tomorrow we will start talking about purchasing, procurement, customer service, demand forecasting, these activities. We will start tomorrow night and we will continue with warehousing, inventory management, and etc. But today I will just give a brief information about that. Procurement, or let's say purchasing, which is the flow of materials through an organization, is usually initiated when procurement sends a purchase order to supplier. So this means that procurement finds suitable suppliers, negotiate terms and conditions, organizes delivery, arranges insurance and payment, and does everything needed to get materials into the organization. So in the past, this has seen a largely clerical job centered uh, on order processing. Inward transport or traffic actually moves materials from suppliers to the organization receiving area. So this has to choose the type of transport, find the best transport operator, design a route, make sure that all safety and legal requirements are met, get deliveries on time at reasonable cost, and so on. Receiving, make sure that materials delivered correspond to the order, acknowledges receipt, unloads the delivery vehicles, inspect materials for damage, and source them. Once you receive the product, where you receive them into the warehousing or stores maybe, which moves materials into storage area, takes care of them until they are needed. And many materials need special care, such as frozen food, drugs, alcohol inbound, chemicals that emit the fumes, animals, and dangerous goods. So as well as making sure that materials can be available quickly when needed, warehousing also makes sure that they have the right conditions, treatments, and packaging to keep them in good condition. Once you store them, of course, you need to make some stock control, which sets the policy for inventory, and it considers the materials to store, overall investment, customer service, stock levels, order sizes, order timing, and so on. And then until the order picking, which finds and removes materials from stores. Typically, materials from a customer order are located, identified, checked, removed from the racks, consolidated into a single load, wrapped, and moved to departure area for loading onto delivery vehicles, which we come to materials handling, moves the materials through the operations within an organization. So it moves materials from one operation to the next. And also moves materials picked from the stores to the point where they are needed. The aim of material handling is to give efficient movements with short journeys, using appropriate equipment, with little damage, and using spatial packaging and handling where needed. And outward transport, of course, takes materials from departure area and delivers them to the customer. So physical distribution management is a general term for activities that deliver finished goods to customer, including outward transfer. It is often aligned with marketing and forms an important link with downstream activities. And finally, recycling, returns and waste disposal. Even when products have been delivered to the customer, the work of logistics may not be finished. There might, for example, be problems with delivered materials. Perhaps they were faulty, too many were delivered, or they were the wrong type, and they have to be collected and brought back. Sometimes there are lots of deficits. So we call it reverse logistics. Okay. Another logistic activity is location. Some of the logistic activities can be done in different locations. Stocks of finished goods, for example, can be held at the end of the production, moved nearby warehouses, put into stores nearer to customers, and passed on to be managed by other organizations or range of alternatives. So logistic has to find the best locations for these activities, or at least play a significant role in decisions. Maybe you don't think that location selection is a logistic activity, but it is. So it also considers related questions about the size and number of facilities. So there are important decisions that affect the overall design of the supply chain, network design of supply chain, and communication. Alongside the physical flow of materials is associated flow of information. This links all parts of supply chain, passing information about products, customer demand, materials to be moved, timing, stock levels, availability, problems, cost, service levels, and so on. So coordinating the flow of information can be very difficult, and logistic managers often describe themselves as processing information rather than moving to goods. Martin Christopher is a professor, supports this view by saying that supply chain competitiveness is based upon the value added exchange of information. So you see the summary of logistic activities again and again, and from that day now, you will see all these activities in detail in different bytes. What I can underline in here, integrating logistics, because fragmenting logistics into different parts has a lot of disadvantages, giving different, often conflicting objectives within an organization. Also duplicating effort and reducing productivity, giving worse communications and information flows between the parties, reducing coordination between the parts, leading so lower efficiency, higher costs, and worse customer service, increasing uncertainty and delays along the supply chain, making planning more difficult, introducing unnecessary buffers between the parts, such as stocks of work in progress, additional transport, and administrative procedures, obscuring important information such as total cost of logistics and giving logistics a low status within an organization. What we need to do? Integrate the logistics within an organization as all the related activities working together as a single function. This is responsible for all storage and also movement of materials throughout the organization. It tackles problems from the viewpoint of whole organization and looks for the greatest overall benefit. Some organizations are tempted to stop when they reach this stage, and they work with two functions. Materials management, which, as I said, align with the production and looking after the inwards flow of materials, especially raw materials, and their movement through the operations, and physical distribution, align with marketing and looking at the outward flow of finished goods. Another factor that encourages internal integration is analysis of total logistic cost. We can define this as total logistic cost is equal to transport cost plus warehouse cost plus stock holding cost plus packaging cost plus information processing cost and other logistic overheads. So how can you not integrate all these things because they are related with each other and it affects the overall cost of logistics. There are three levels of logistic integration if you decide to do that. The first one is separate functions within an organization. You see that all logistic activities are separate. B is integration within the organization. It is somewhat better. But if you look at integration along the supply chain, it includes the external integration with the supplier and also the customer, which is preferable in today's business world. We see a lot of benefits of integration, genuine cooperation between all parties within the chain with shared information and resources, lower cost due to balanced operations, lower stocks, less expediting, economies of scale, elimination of activities that waste time or do not add value, and so on. Improved performance due to more accurate forecasts, better planning, higher productivity of resources, rational priorities, and so on. And improved material flow with coordination, giving faster and more reliable movements. Better customer service with shorter lead times, fast deliveries, and more customization. More flexibility with organization reacting fastly to changing conditions. Standardized producers becoming routine and well practiced with less duplication of effort, information planning, and so on. And reliable quality, fewer inspections, and integrated quality management programs are the benefits of integration. So, when the time comes that logistics becomes much more complicated, businesses started to focus on their core competences, and it is not easy for them to manage their own logistic activities. So there is, you know, a trend of outsourcing becomes a common form of partnership of logistics has a specialized company looking after for all of an organization transport. So this arrangement has advantages of an efficient and experienced specialist to look after the transport, while the organization can concentrate on its core operations. But why stop at transport? An organization can form partnerships with other companies to look after their warehousing services, purchase of materials, materials handling, and many of other functions of logistics. So when one company uses other companies to run its logistics, it is called third party or contract logistics. In literature, there is always a gap between production and consumption. So Kotler, one of the marketing guru, mentioned this gap has been filled by several intermediaries within the marketing chain. So the function of these middlemen have been highly dependent on each other, and there has been no way to eliminate these functions with these middlemen has removed from the system. So importance of marketing and logistic function has become clearer. It is explained in Porter's value chain framework. This is you see the primary activities and support activities, right? So Shaw introduced functional school of thought to marketing theory using middlemen in distribution channels become necessary for acquiring different logistic functions, sharing the risk in the channel, and financing the operation and etc. So in order to sustain competitive advantage in the market, firms should consider how to maximize their value while minimize their costs in their decisions about management of logistic activities. If you look at the KPMG third annual logistic benchmarking study, there are some reasons of outsourcing logistics services for firms, as listed cost reduction, utilizing information technology, and an effective inventory management. But also, Razak and Shang in 1998 reviewed some other reasons for outsourcing: improved productivity measurements, increasing cost-efficient foreign competition, management demand for a financial contribution for all sectors of companies, mergers and acquisitions that require keeping assets off the books, need to move inventory faster, need for flexible production, and attachment to core business. These are the reasons for companies to outsource logistics services. The firms which adopt supply chain strategy are more open to all sorts of logistics services. As Anderson and others mentioned, the requirement of coordination, communication and collaboration with other parties in the supply chain directs companies supply issues. Also, they have the opportunity to reduce capital investment in facilities, equipment, information technology, manpower, and inventory. They can be more flexible, quick response to market needs, and gain access to know-how. So logistic outsourcing is enabled by a broad range of logistics service providers. There are five kinds of logistics service providers: carriers, freight forwarders, courier and express and parcel portal services, third-party contract logistics services, and fourth-party logistics service providers. If you look at the carriers, this is typically on logistic assets and concentrate mainly on supplying transportation services that are mostly confined to either road, sea, rail, or rail transportation, and only in few cases also offer combination of these services, and they receive their orders either directly from the customer or through the freight forwarder, and with their service portfolio cater to needs of traditional logistics, so third phase of logistics. That's why we call it first party of logistic providers. It's not a logistic provider though, it's just a carrier. With increasing sophistication of logistic processes, you heard about freight forwarders, which address the growing needs of customers by offering coordinating functions and intermediating services. They bundle transportation services, offer warehousing, and increasingly also a supply combination of two. While the focus of freight forwarder service is still on providing physical processes, they also carry out additional services such as transportation planning and management, including providing the associated information systems, and also sometimes act as carriers by using own assets for transport or warehousing. Overall, the freight forwarders in their coordinating function address the needs of firms which are located in the second phase of logistics. 3PLs or contract logistics service providers focus on business customers and provide service packages that's carried out on a longer term contractual basis. The solutions commonly include several services such as warehousing, pick and pack, or order handling. So increasingly, third-party logistic providers also provide customized services integrated in the customer's value chain, such as fleet management, order handling, complaints management, or assembly services within their warehouses. For parts of the services offered that the 3PL couldn't provide alone due to a lack of own assets, frequently carriers or freight forwarders are employed. If you look at 4PL, refers to logistics service provider, which serves as an intermediary and general contracted for inter-organizational supply chain without supplying any physical process by itself. So rather, it employs carriers, 3PLs, and other logistics service providers for the physical processes and concentrates on planning, conceptualizing, and managing the supply chain. So it therefore is virtually operating without physical assets and therefore supposedly is neutral. So I can easily say that there are not too many third-party logistic providers in the world. Mostly we see third-party logistic service providers. And if you see this pyramid, the first party logistics is in the standardized services with own or external resources. Let's say haulier warehouse operators. In the second party logistics, individual or systemized services with own or external resources, let's say international freight forwarders. The third party logistic providers contract services with own or inbuilt resources, which we say contract logistics or lead logistics provider. And finally, the fourth party logistics services tailor made to supply chain needs of the client using best in class resources such as independent, general, contracted. Usually DHL, for example, is kind of fourth-party logistics service provider. What are the criteria for selection of provider? First of all, a company should, look at the market, and they should look at the compatibility with the users of their supply chain, and the cost of service, of course, and the quality of service, reputation of the company. Long-term relationship is very important. Performance measurement, willingness to use logistics manpower, flexibility in billing and payment, quality of management, information sharing, and of course, mutual trust. These are the criteria that you look when you are selecting a third-party logistic provider. But not enough. You should also look at their operational performance, their information technology capability, size and quality of fixed assets, experience in similar products, delivery performance, employee satisfaction level, financial performance, and market share. Geographical spread is important because if you are a global firm, you need to look around all geography, all places around the world. Risk management, search capacity of provider, clause for arbitration and escape, flexibility in operations and delivery, cost of relationship, freight price, financial stability. You see the lot of criteria that you need to evaluate. You see some 3PLs in the market today. In Turkey, for example, we see Mars Logistics, Barsan, Resash, but in global, Siva, DHL, Kuehne Nagel, Schenker and Ankars. These are all international 3PLs. I provide you some, websites. These are professional organizations dedicating to advancing professional knowledge for their members. If you look for further information about logistics, these websites will help you. So I offer these websites to you. And that's it for tonight. First night. It's a heavy material, I know. But I will try to give the main idea of logistics. You see, all these activities belong to logistics, and supply chain management concept is very important in nowadays. Logistics cannot be apart from supply chain, but supply chain management idea is a wider idea. It's a philosophy. Logistics activities are included in this supply chain. So from now on, we will talk separately. Tomorrow night, we will start with purchasing and procurement. We will talk about demand forecasting and customer service. If you have any question, you can ask right now, but we are out of time now, so I can close the class. You can send me always an email. Thank you for listening me. See you tomorrow night. Bye bye. Thank you, Anika, for listening me all night. Goodbye.